My name is Celeste Marlowe, 32 years old. The dinner was at Maroni's, an upscale Italian place where the red leather booths shone under dim lamps and every clink of glass felt rehearsed. Our family gathered there once a month, a tradition my father insisted kept us united. What it really did was remind me where I stood. I slid into my seat just as Kyle, my older brother, lifted his glass with the swagger of someone who had never faced a consequence in his life. His voice carried, sharp and confident. So, I accessed Celeste's brokerage account. She gave me her password years ago, remember? I liquidated those weird tech stocks she was hoarding and paid off my credit card debt. 43 grand gone, just like that, finally put to good use. The table erupted with laughter, Dad's booming approval cutting through. Smart thinking, Kyle. At least someone here understands money. Celeste's been sitting on those shares for what, 8 years? Doing nothing with them. I placed my fork down carefully, the steel making a soft chime on the porcelain plate. My water glass was steady in my hand, though my pulse was not. Mom shifted in her seat, her face a polite mask, as if discomfort could be smoothed over by silence. She had mastered the art of not intervening whenever Kyle was involved. Jessica, my younger sister, frowned. Wait, you gave him your password? Why would you do that? I kept my voice quiet. It was years ago. I don't even remember. A lie. I remembered perfectly. I had never given Kyle permission for anything. But 8 years ago, when I was living at home between apartments, he had watched me log in once. He had always been good at watching over shoulders, at memorizing what wasn't his. Kyle leaned back, sipping his wine. Crisis averted. That debt was going to drown me. 22% interest. Brutal. Celeste's dusty stocks? Sitting there doing maybe 2% annually, if that. Better to put them to real use. 2% annually, if only he knew. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. Dad was looking at me with that blend of disappointment and resignation he reserved especially for me. You should be thanking your brother, Celeste. He saved you from your own indecision. You've been clinging to those shares out of stubbornness, like you always do. Stubbornness, I echoed. Sentimental about the wrong things, he clarified. The phone buzzed again, then again, insistent this time. I pushed back my chair. Excuse me, I need to take this. The restaurant's hallway smelled of garlic and expensive cologne. I slipped out to the front vestibule where the hostess gave me a distracted smile, her pen hovering over the reservation book. I nodded vaguely, already fishing out my phone. 7 missed calls from Marcus Webb, my attorney. 12 texts from him. 3 from Jennifer Chin, my financial advisor. 1 from David Park, my business partner. I called Marcus first. He answered before the first ring completed. Celeste, thank God. Where are you? Family dinner. What's happening? Your brother. Did he access your brokerage account today? My stomach tightened. He just bragged about it at the table, said he sold off some of my stocks to clear his debt. There was a pause. Celeste, Fidelity's fraud department called me 20 minutes ago. Someone sold 150,000 shares of Neuralink Technologies this morning. They flagged it because the sale doesn't match your historical behavior. The hallway tilted around me. He said it was $43,000, some old tech stocks. Celeste, Marcus said slowly, those shares were not worth $43,000. At today's closing price, $2,180 per share, they're worth $327 million. I gripped the brick wall near the entrance. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Say that again. $327 million, and Kyle sold them without authorization. He accessed your account with an old password. This is securities fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, federal level. My pulse pounded in my ears. Through the glass window, I could see my family still laughing, dessert menus scattered like confetti. What are my options? I asked. Option 1, we report immediately to the SEC and FBI. Kyle will be arrested within 48 hours. He's looking at 10 to 20 years. Option 2, we freeze accounts, file a civil suit, push for settlement. It keeps him out of prison if he cooperates, but his career is finished. Another vibration in my hand. Jennifer's text. Celeste, I just saw the Neuralink sale. Please tell me this was authorized. The tax fallout alone is catastrophic if not planned. I typed back quickly. Not authorized. Kyle accessed my account. Her response came instantly. Oh my God, do not move a dollar. I'm calling my lawyer now. Then David's message. Celeste, Fidelity flagged me as emergency contact. What the hell happened? Are you okay? I wrote back, family situation. I'll handle it. He replied, not just family. This is your company, your patents, your future. My vision blurred with memories. 8 years ago, 5 of us in a Palo Alto garage, sleepless weeks, ramen and cheap coffee. I'd been lead biomed engineer, filing patents, while others doubted we'd survive the year. Neuralink had been theory and grit back then. Now it was FDA approved, public, skyrocketing, and Kyle had reduced it to a footnote in his debt story. I called Marcus again. Can you come to Maroney's now? 15 minutes. But Celeste, if you're planning to confront him... I'm not confronting, I interrupted. I'm educating. I hung up. At the hostess stand, the young woman looked at me expectantly. Everything okay? She asked lightly. I forced a calm smile. We'll see. I returned to the table. Mom looked up. Everything all right, dear? Work, I said evenly. Still doing that consulting thing? Dad asked, dismissive as ever. Yes, something like that. Kyle was showing Jessica something on his phone, laughing. Probably his debt-free balance. I slid back into my chair. Kyle, I said, keeping my tone calm. Can you walk me through exactly how you accessed my account? He blinked, surprised. Oh, I just used your old login from when you lived at home. You had it written down in your desk drawer. I snapped a photo, just in case you needed help later. For emergencies. You kept a photo of my passwords. For emergencies, he repeated, as if that made it noble. Turned out lucky, didn't it? Dead money doing nothing. Now it's useful. Jessica tilted her head. Wait, you sold all of it? How much was it? Kyle grinned. Every single share. Fidelity made it easy. Sell all, click, done. 43 grand after fees. More than enough to wipe the slate clean. Jessica's eyes widened. 150,000 shares for 43,000? That's like 29 cents a share. What company was this again? Neuron-like Technologies, I answered, my voice level as I felt the weight of every gaze fall on me. The words hung there, heavy and unfinished, like a storm cloud that had just cracked open. For a second, the whole table went still, like the room had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. Then Dad laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. Come on, 2,000 a share? That's ridiculous. Kyle, tell her you're kidding. Kyle's grin faltered. The old paper said, look, the certificates were practically nothing. Pennies. They were strike prices from 2016, I said, my voice steady even as my hands pressed hard into my napkin. Not market value. The company went public 6 months ago, at $1,200 a share. Today it closed at $2,180. Jessica's phone was already out. Her thumb danced, scrolling. The screen threw a blue-white glow onto her face as she read aloud, careful and slow. Neuralink Technologies. IPO at $2,200. Current price, $2,180. Founding engineer Celeste Marlowe listed on multiple patents. She lifted her eyes to mine. Is this you? 17 patents, I said. Core interface, signal noise mitigation, thermal safety. Signed and assigned. A fork clinked somewhere behind us. In the corner, a couple paused mid-toast. That's the thing about certain words. Millions, founding, federal. They run ahead of you and hush a room before you arrive. Mom whispered, tell me you authorized this, Celeste. I looked at Kyle. He had the expression of a man staring at a wave he'd insisted didn't exist. You sold 150,000 shares, I said, to pay $43,000 of credit card debt. He shook his head too fast. No, you're exaggerating. There's no way. I used your login because you gave it to me years ago. I didn't. And I was trying to help. You sit on things. You do nothing. You thought I wouldn't notice, I said. Or you thought you knew better than me. Or both. Dad's chair scraped. Enough. You had no business holding that kind of risk anyway. Stocks like that are volatile. Kyle might have saved you from a crash. The hostess appeared at my elbow with a polite stiffness. Ms. Marlowe, there's a gentleman at the front who says he's expected. Marcus moved past her, a leather briefcase in one hand, his tie slightly off-center like he'd knotted it in the car. He took in the table, Dad rigid, Mom pale, Jessica gripping her phone, Kyle listing in his chair like a ship with a hole. Ms. Marlowe, he said. Mr. He glanced at my brother, then didn't finish the name. I apologize for the disruption. I have documents you'll want to see immediately. Dad drew himself tall. Who are you? Marcus Webb, counsel. He set the briefcase on the tablecloth as if it were a surgical tray. Papers slid out in quiet, fatal folds. Fidelity executed a trade at 0942 this morning. Sale of 150,000 shares of Neuralink Technologies across a laddered order. Average price, $2,176. Total proceeds, $326,400,000 before taxes and fees. The account owner did not authorize the trade. A murmur rose from the nearest booths, then died as quickly as it breached the air. Marcus placed a second sheet, a tight column of numbers and tiny map pins. Logins traced to 2 IP addresses. One from Ms. Marlowe's home network at 0904, consistent with her phone check-in and autofill due to Face-ID mismatch, and one from an address registered to Kyle Marlowe's apartment at 0911. There are also prior logins from that same address on multiple dates over the past 3 years. Kyle's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Marcus continued, crisp as a metronome. Relevant statutes include 18 U.S.C. 1343, wire fraud, 15 U.S.C. 78J, B, securities fraud, and 18 U.S.C. 128A, aggravated identity theft, depending on the precise method of access and any transmission of credentials. Penalties are severe at these dollar thresholds. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad breathed hard through his nose as if oxygen itself had become adversarial. Jessica set her phone down like it had suddenly grown hot. "This is insane," Kyle said, finally finding sound. "I didn't steal anything. I used what I had because I needed to fix a problem before my review. It's a—" Marcus looked up. "Your review?" "It's nothing," Kyle said too quickly. "My mentor, someone senior at the fund, he's been on me to clean up personal debt before the promotion cycle. He said optics matter. He said dead money is still dead." His eyes darted to Dad, seeking an ally. It wasn't malicious. It was triage. The name slid across my mind like a shadow. Darren Wolfe. I'd met him once, 10 minutes at a holiday party, where he'd called Neuralink a neat hobby that might scale if it survives a few lawsuits. He had the grin of a man who mistook condescension for charm. "Who told you dead money?" I asked. Kyle swallowed. "It doesn't matter." "It does," I said, "because you didn't just decide. You were encouraged. And you were encouraged because someone taught you to trust your judgment over mine." Dad's jaw tightened. "Don't start turning this into some social indictment of men and women and—" "This is about respect and permission," I said, not raising my voice, not needing to. "It's about a lifetime of you assuming my work was a phase, of Kyle fixing things that weren't broken." A server hovered near the dessert cart, then retreated without speaking. Somewhere a cappuccino hissed. The whole restaurant felt like a theater right after the curtain drops and before anyone claps. An uncertainty that tasted like metal. Marcus tapped another document. Fidelity's fraud team has already frozen related accounts to preserve proceeds. We're within the window to coordinate with the SEC and FBI. Ms. Marlowe, his eyes shifted to me. You have 2 primary paths. He set 2 sheets apart, parallel like rails. Path A, immediate criminal referral. Arrest likely within 48 hours. You'll have robust victims' rights and the state carries the case. Path B, civil remedy with injunctive relief. We keep prosecutors on notice, but we lead with a settlement that assigns assets, imposes public accountability, and protects Ms. Marlowe's financial position. Both paths include full security hardening, credential rotation, device trust reset, new custody rules. Mom's voice came thin. Public accountability? Marcus's tone stayed neutral. A written public apology detailing the misconduct. Possibly a press statement to correct market perceptions and avoid rumors that could harm the issuer. Dad bristled. "You will not humiliate my son in public." I leaned forward, elbows on linen, the posture of someone examining a specimen in a lab. "He humiliated me in public for years. He did it laughing. He did it with your applause." Jessica's eyes glistened. "Celeste," she whispered, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I just didn't ask enough questions." I looked at her, and for the first time that night, my face softened. "You can start now." Kyle pressed his palms to his temples. "I thought they were worthless. The paper said cents. You never told us it was this. You always said consulting like it was small." That was easier than watching you glaze over, I said. Easier than having Dad correct my own job into something he respected. I glanced at Marcus. What else do we know? He slid one final print out across to me. The ink was fresh. The edges smelled like the inside of a copy room. There was an attempt at 0926 to initiate an external transfer to a newly linked account. It failed at the two-factor step and triggered a soft block. The device ID doesn't match Mr. Marlowe's laptop. We can subpoena ISP data, but it could be a phone, possibly another actor. Another actor, Dad repeated flatly, as if the term itself were an outrage. I stared at the timestamp, the 9 minutes between Kyle's login and the failed transfer, the breath of time in which my life had been rerouted and then, by a technical mercy, partially spared. A memory flickered. Darren's polished voice at that party. Optics matter. Dead money is still dead. A phrase like a keycard waved too often at too many doors. Mom reached for Kyle's wrist. He pulled away without looking. I turned to Marcus. You spoke to the SEC already? They're aware. They prefer we present a clean package if we don't insist on immediate referral. The Bureau is the same. They like tidy. Dad swallowed hard. If we take your civil path, what does that mean for Kyle tomorrow morning? Are we... It means, Marcus said, we prevent a perp walk and preserve options. It also means the terms will be strict. Full asset disclosure, assignment of non-exempt assets, cooperation, public statement, no contact with Ms. Marlowe's accounts or professional counterparts. Kyle finally looked at me, not defiant now, but something worse, pleading. Cece, I messed up. I was drowning. Wolf said the promotion would change everything if I cleaned up my liabilities. I acted fast. Stupid, yeah, but not malicious. Somewhere under the table, my hands had made fists. I unclenched them one finger at a time. When we were kids, I said, you once filed my taxes for me while I was at class. You changed my deductions because you decided I was doing it wrong. I had to spend a week untangling penalties. I let the memory settle between us, small but precise. You called it help then, too. Silence throbbed. Dad looked away. Mom's shoulders collapsed a fraction. Marcus checked his watch. Ms. Marlowe, I need a decision to move the right levers. I felt the two paths like rails again, humming with very different trains. One promised loud justice. The other promised something quieter, but perhaps more surgical. My eyes drifted to the window, where the city threw back our reflections in dulled silver. In the glass, we looked like strangers pretending to be a family, for the benefit of an audience that had stopped watching years ago. I turned back to Marcus. Give me 30 minutes. Dad exhaled as if he'd been bracing for a hammer. 30? I'm going to step outside, I said, rising. I'm going to call Jennifer and David and hear exactly how my actions will hit the company and the market. I'm going to consider what protects Neuralink and me and... My gaze touched Kyle, then moved past him. The truth. Marcus nodded once. I'll be at the front. As I walked away, the room slowly exhaled again, sound seeping back in cautious trickles. A plate set down, a chair nudged, a soft apology from a server who'd arrived at the wrong time. The hallway felt cooler than before. Outside, the streetlights cast rings on wet pavement, circles within circles, boundaries inside boundaries, glowing and separate. My phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. Subject line, Wolf. The preview showed a single sentence. You should check the messages from last week. I lifted my face to the night and let the air steady me. Then I hit call. Jennifer, I said when she answered, tell me everything I need to know if I choose the civil path. Start with this, she replied without greeting. We can lock the cash, structure the tax, and plan a buyback, but only if you control the narrative tonight. Then we're on the clock, I said. Through the glass, my family was a tableau. Dad rigid, Mom shell-shocked, Jessica looking at the empty chair where I'd been, Kyle's head in his hands, the life I'd built, and the family that had refused to see it, suspended in a frame I could finally step out of. 30 minutes to decide. 30 minutes to choose daylight over spectacle. 30 minutes to set the rules for whatever came next. I ended the call with Jennifer and dialed David. I'm here, he said on the first ring. I've got counsel on standby. I want to protect the company, I said, and I want the truth on record. Then pick the door that lets you do both, he said. I intend to, I answered, and turned back toward the restaurant, toward Marcus, toward the two sheets laid side by side like parallel lines that would never meet. I stepped back into the restaurant as though entering a theater where the play had stalled in my absence. Every eye flicked toward me. The weight of expectation was almost physical, pressing against my shoulders. Marcus closed his briefcase but kept his pen in hand, poised. "I've made my decision," I said, sliding into my chair with deliberate calm. Kyle looked up, eyes red, hope flickering like the tail end of a match. "Civil settlement," I continued, "but on my terms. Full disclosure of assets, complete cooperation with Marcus and his team, and a public apology, not just to me, but to the company and to everyone you've ever misled about my work." The words landed heavy, like stones dropped into water. Jessica flinched. Mom exhaled a trembling breath of relief. Dad's jaw clenched, his knuckles white against the stem of his glass. Kyle swallowed hard. "Public? That'll kill me. Darren, my firm, they'll—" "Your firm already knows," Marcus interrupted. "Fidelity flagged multiple accounts. The freeze is system-wide. You'll be terminated by morning. The apology is the least of your concerns." The color drained from Kyle's face. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, like a boy caught stealing, not a man who had just gambled away hundreds of millions. I folded my hands. "You wanted to be a hero, Kyle. Now you can be, by telling the truth." A brittle silence followed. Jessica broke it first. "Celeste," she said softly, "what happens to him if he refuses?" I didn't look away from Kyle. "If he refuses, I file criminal charges. The FBI will have him in custody within 48 hours. Those are the choices." Dad's fist hit the table, rattling cutlery. "You'd destroy your own brother? For money?" "For permission," I corrected. "For boundaries. For respect. The money is a symptom. The theft is the disease." Mom dabbed her eyes with a linen napkin. "Maybe we can resolve this quietly." "It's not quiet anymore," I said. "Not with Fidelity, not with the SEC, not with my partners, not with the failed transfer attempt that wasn't even from Kyle's device." That snapped Dad's head toward Marcus. "What?" Marcus tapped the report again. "There's evidence of a secondary actor, attempted transfer to an external account that failed it due to two-factor security. We're still tracing, but the device ID is unknown." Kyle's lips parted, then pressed shut. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Who else has your login?" I asked, my voice sharp. "No one," he muttered. "Just me, I swear." I leaned in. "Then explain Darren Wolf. Explain why he's been coaching you on dead money and timing promotions with personal debt cleanup. Explain why an external transfer was attempted 9 minutes after you logged in." Kyle's jaw worked, silent, like he was chewing gravel. Marcus cleared his throat. "We'll subpoena communications, but for now, we need to lock in your decision, Ms. Marlowe. Settlement terms and protective measures." I nodded. "Do it. Freeze everything he owns until disclosure is complete. Draft the apology terms tonight. And notify Neuralink's board. We'll need a statement ready before the market opens." Marcus scribbled. Dad muttered under his breath. Mom stared at her lap. I turned to Jessica. She was the only one watching me without hostility, her eyes wide and wet. "Jess," I said quietly, "come with me." We left the table together, ignoring Dad's hissed protest. Up 2 flights of stairs, onto the rooftop terrace where string lights glowed and the night air smelled of rain on stone. Manhattan's skyline blazed around us, indifferent to our private wars. Jessica hugged her arms around herself. "Celeste, I didn't know. I didn't want to know, maybe. Kyle always seemed so confident, and you always work so quietly. I thought if it was big, you'd tell us." I almost laughed. "I did, years ago. You all glazed over." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't want to be that blind again. Teach me. Please. Help me understand what you built." Her words softened something in me. For years, Jessica had been Switzerland. Neutral, agreeable, absent when it mattered. Now, for once, she was choosing. "I can't make you care," I said. "But if you want to understand, start by listening at the press conference. Sit in the front row. When reporters ask how my family reacted, tell them the truth, that you never asked, that you assumed, that you looked away." Jessica's chin trembled, but she nodded. "I will." We stood there a moment, the city loud beneath us. For the first time, I felt less alone. Back downstairs, Marcus had already begun drawing up notes. Kyle was slumped in his chair, Dad whispering furiously at him, Mom wringing her hands. I picked up my coat. "We're done here tonight. Marcus will be in touch in the morning with documents. Kyle, you have 24 hours to sign. If not, the criminal path activates automatically." Kyle lifted his head. His eyes were raw, but not from remorse, from panic. "Celeste, please don't ruin me." "You ruined yourself," I said. I'm just writing it down. I walked out of Maroney's, Jessica trailing behind me for a few steps before stopping at the door. On the curb, the night air slapped me awake. My phone buzzed again. Another email from the unknown address with the subject line, Wolf. This time, an attachment. Screenshots of messages between Kyle and Darren. I opened one. Darren. Dead money doesn't help anyone. Sell it off. Optics matter. Kyle. She'll notice. Darren. Not if you fix it fast. She's sentimental. You're decisive. Do it. The pit in my stomach deepened. This wasn't just Kyle's arrogance. It was cultivated, fed, encouraged. I closed the email, slipping the phone back into my pocket. The battle lines were shifting. This wasn't just family anymore. It was professional. And the stakes had never been higher. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at a midtown hotel ballroom, hastily booked by Neuralink's legal team. By the time I arrived, cameras were already lined up in rows, journalists whispering as they adjusted tripods and microphones. The murmur in the room felt like a storm front waiting to break. Marcus stood near the stage, flipping through his notes with military precision. "Stay concise," he murmured. "Fact first, emotion later. Let them see strength, not grievance." Kyle was at the edge of the room, pale as chalk. His suit hung loose, as though he had lost weight overnight. His hands trembled as he unfolded the prepared statement Marcus had drafted, the words he would have to read aloud in front of flashing cameras. Jessica caught my arm. "I'm here," she said. "Front row, like you asked." I gave her the smallest nod. It mattered more than I could admit. When the lights dimmed and the moderator announced the session, Kyle stepped to the podium. For a moment, he looked like the brother I once knew, the one who used to pull me along on bikes through suburban streets, before condescension hardened into habit. Then he began reading, his voice cracking at the edges. "I accessed my sister, Celeste Marlowe's brokerage account without authorization. I sold 150,000 shares of Neuralink Technologies, believing them to be of little value. In reality, I sold assets worth more than $327 million. I acted recklessly. I disrespected her work, her achievements, and her trust. For years, I dismissed her career. I was catastrophically wrong." The room was silent but for the click of shutters. He swallowed. "I apologize to my sister, to Neuralink Technologies, and to the public I misled. I will cooperate fully in restitution and corrective measures." He stepped back, shoulders caving inward, as if the words had carved pieces out of him. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and met the eyes of the room. "I am Celeste Marlowe," I said, "founding engineer of Neuralink Technologies. For 8 years, I worked alongside brilliant colleagues to build what began in a garage and is now one of the leading innovators in brain-computer interface. Yesterday, an unauthorized sale of my shares occurred. I want to make this very clear. I am reinvesting. I believe in what we are building. I always have." The shutters fired faster now. Questions erupted. "Ms. Marlowe, do you plan to sue your brother? Are you pressing criminal charges? What does this mean for Neuralink's market outlook? Did you know your family was unaware of your role in the company?" I raised a hand and the room quieted. "I have chosen a civil settlement. My decision protects the company, protects shareholders, and acknowledges the reality that family does not excuse theft. Neuralink's mission continues unchanged. Our work is stronger than one betrayal." A reporter in the second row stood. "Can you comment on reports of a failed transfer attempt connected to an external account?" I froze, only for a beat. Marcus's eyes warned me from the sidelines. "Choose carefully." "The investigation is ongoing," I said. "What I can tell you is that any attempt to compromise Neuralink or my assets will be addressed directly and transparently. No one stands above accountability." That answer stirred another wave of murmurs, scribbles, flashes. I stepped down before they could press further. In the hallway afterward, Dad intercepted me. His face was gray, his tie crooked. "You've humiliated him. Humiliated us. Do you understand what you've done to this family?" I looked at him evenly. "I didn't do this. Kyle did. And your silence for years helped him believe he could." "You could have kept this private," he hissed. "Handled it quietly." "It was never private," I replied. Not when Fidelity knew. Not when the SEC knew. Not when the FBI watched the trade in real time. Privacy ended the moment Kyle clicked sell. Jessica appeared at my side, glaring at Dad. "Stop blaming her. She's protecting the company and herself, finally. Dad's mouth opened, then closed. He turned away without another word. Later, in a private debrief, Marcus laid out the next moves. The market will react positively to your buyback announcement. But there's more. He slid a folder toward me. Inside were the screenshots I'd received by email, expanded now into a timeline. Messages between Kyle and Darren Wolf, his mentor at the fund. Darren's words were slick, deliberate. Dead money. Do the adult thing. Optics matter. And then one more, chilling in its precision. Use her old login. You said you still have it. I stared at the page until the letters blurred. So Darren wasn't just coaching him. He was complicit. Marcus nodded grimly. We'll forward this to regulators. Wolf may face sanctions, maybe worse. But Kyle remains the actor who pulled the trigger. You need to be ready for how your family will spin that distinction. I thought of Mom's tears, Dad's fury, Kyle's broken posture at the podium. I thought of Jessica sitting front row, her eyes unwavering. Let them spin, I said. I'm done minimizing. That night, alone in my condo, the city lights stretched across the bay like constellations. My phone buzzed again, an encrypted email from the same sender. More where that came from. He isn't the only one who underestimated you. I closed the laptop slowly, the words lingering like smoke. The world finally knew who I was, but the truth was spreading in directions none of us could yet see. Thanksgiving came colder than I remembered. The Marlowe house sat heavy under slate skies, its windows lit like eyes that had seen too much and tried to pretend otherwise. I pulled into the driveway in a car my family didn't know I owned, stepped out in an Armani suit they never would have imagined I'd wear, and carried nothing but my own name as my offering. Mom answered the door, her eyes rimmed red, her voice soft. Celeste, you look successful. I am successful, I said. I've been successful for 8 years. You're just seeing it now. The dining room was set with the same china we'd used every holiday, but the air was different. Kyle sat at the far end, shoulders rounded, his once easy confidence stripped bare. Jessica was beside him, closer to me than to him. Dad filled his glass with bourbon before even sitting down. Dinner moved stiffly, conversation stilted. Dad tried to ask about Neuralink, fumbling terms, confusing neural interfaces with artificial intelligence, mixing patents with stock tickers. His words weren't accurate, but for the first time, he was at least trying. Mom corrected him gently, and I noticed. She didn't diminish me this time. She repeated my title carefully, as though each syllable was a step she had to take. When the toast came, Dad raised his glass, his voice subdued, to family, and to Celeste, whose achievements we celebrated years ago. We're sorry it took a crisis to open our eyes. It wasn't enough, not yet. 8 years of dismissal could not be undone by one toast, but it was a start. After dinner, Marcus's call came through. He didn't wait for pleasantries. We've got the subpoenaed emails. Darren Wolf coached Kyle. He wasn't just whispering in his ear, he practically orchestrated the move. Regulators are preparing sanctions against him. I closed my eyes. So Kyle wasn't alone. No, but he was still the one who executed. He knew what he was doing. Wolf just pushed him off the edge faster. Kyle avoided my gaze the rest of the night, but the truth sat between us like an unwelcome guest. He'd signed over his assets, given up his apartment, drained his retirement accounts into restitution. He was diminished, humiliated, but spared prison only because I had chosen restraint. Mom walked me to the door, her voice hushed. Thank you for coming. I know it's not easy. I know we failed you. I met her eyes. You failed to see me. That's different. Seeing me now doesn't erase the past, but it shapes the future. Jessica hugged me on the porch, her arms tight, her whisper firm. I'll be there for the next press call. I'll sit in the front row again. No more silence. I believed her. That night, back in my condo, with the bay shimmering beyond glass walls, I opened a folder labeled Next. Inside were plans for a new R&D arm of Neuralink, sketches of prototypes that could change not just markets but lives. The $280 million in liquid assets gave me leverage. The betrayal gave me clarity. My family finally saw me for who I was, but the truth was, I didn't need them to anymore. Success was no longer a secret. Trust, though, that would always be audited.